This is part 3 of our discussion on Harinama Chintamani. Now it says chapter 2, but this is part 3. And that's because part 1 was a summary of the life of Haridas Thakur. And then part 2 was chapter 1, which we covered yesterday evening. And I'll just quickly summarize chapter 1. The characters are introduced. Haridas Thakur is introduced. Lord Chaitanya is introduced because this is a dialogue between the two. The Panchatattva were identified. Panchatattva means Lord Chaitanya and his principal associates, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, that's 3, Gadadhar is 4, and Srivas is 5. So the Panchatattva were introduced. The special mercy of Lord Chaitanya, giving his benedictions to the world during this age of Kali. Then, interestingly, Lord Chaitanya asked Haridas a question. The question was, in this age of Kali, how can people be delivered most quickly? And to give the answer, Haridas Thakur expressed great humility, first of all, and then following the order of Lord Chaitanya, spoke what Lord Chaitanya was having him speak. And then he described what we're going to hear again in chapter number 2, Sambandha Gyan. What does that mean? Sambandha means relationship. So knowledge of the relationship of all things in relation to the source of all things, Krishna. Then with establishing Krishna as the source, he has 3 main potencies, some details, but the spiritual potency, the material potency, material potency, and the living entity, which is marginal between spiritual and material. And when the living entity turns away from the spiritual, he faces the material. And once in the material, energy is difficult to get out. There's different processes that were covered, but the primary means to get out is not just elevation to a heavenly realm, because that's also temporary, but different processes specific for this age, chanting of the holy name. That was chapter 1. Now we're at chapter 2. This book, Harinama Chintamani, the title of the book was taken from an important verse from Padma Purana, where it says that the holy name Harinam acts like Chintamani. We're going to hear that further in this chapter 2. It's like touchstone that transforms something ordinary into something extraordinary. Touchstone. And the book was written in 1900. We heard, because yesterday we were observing the disappearance day of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He lived from 1938 until 1914. 1838 till 1914. So he was about 75 years of age when he left this world. So he wrote this book when he was around 60, 61. And a sequel to this book, because he really liked this book, is Bhajan Rahasya. Bhajan Rahasya, just a quick book review. It's a sequel or compendium or additional topics related to what's in this book. And it's specifically focusing on the 9 processes of bhakti given by Rupa Goswami and the 8 verses of Shikshastakam given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It takes the reader through 8 chapters of going through the stages of perfection that Lord Chaitanya taught. On Thursday evening, we heard the first of the Shikshastaka verses of the 8. That was our topic on Thursday evening. So Bhajana Rahasya is taking the reader through the stages of experiencing perfection. It's like a roadmap to perfection. The Shikshastaka is, and he drills down or expands, elaborates on how Shikshastaka teaches us how we can achieve perfection through chanting of the holy name. It's an important book. The Bengali term is Nama Grahana Vichar. Vichar means considerations on the chanting of the holy name. So it's not all-inclusive, obviously. It's not saying everything, but it's considerations. So now we're going to begin chapter 2. There's Lord Chaitanya. The background is the dome of the Jagannath temple. And to his front is Haridas. So the chapter begins with the same Panchatattva mantra, but it's a different one than the one we're accustomed to hearing. But the Panchatattva are all glorified. Glory to Lord Chaitanya, to Lord Gadadhar, and to Nityananda, the wife of Janava Devi. Glory to Advaita, the husband of Sita. Glory to Srivas and all the devotees of the Lord. So that the beginning, Panchatattva mantra, that appears regularly throughout this book. Haridas wept with great love. With love, Lord Chaitanya embraced him, because at the end of chapter 1, Haridas is at Lord Chaitanya's feet, grasping Lord Chaitanya's feet, begging for Lord Chaitanya to be merciful, to give him some attraction and love for the holy name. He's not asking for liberation, he's asking for attraction and love for the holy name. Lord Chaitanya lifts him up and embraces him. Lord Chaitanya said, "Where is there another devotee like you? You know all the truths of spiritual life. You are always beyond the touch of Maya. Descending to this world, you took birth in a lowly family. In this way, you showed everyone that it is not by wealth, honor, noble family, or material virtues that one is able to meet Lord Krishna." By the way, these graphics, it's not mine. This is some devotees that worked together maybe 5 years ago on presenting all the chapters of Harinama Chintamani. Anyone who has great faith, that's key. This is the price, or the entrance into the holy name, is faith, and put an adjective in front of it, great faith. Anyone who has great faith in pure devotional service is a saint. He is more exalted than the demigods. Now just a little sharing. During Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, it was a big challenge. I mean, in all directions, it was a big challenge. One of the big challenges was the British occupancy. And according to the British propaganda, it was deliberate. Everything European is excellent and everything India is backwards. and severe deprecation of the Vedas. Like purposeful, severe deprecation of the Vedas. They, instead of calling it mythology, they called it Indology, which meant mythology. And there were departments of study for Indology, which meant everything in the Vedas is mythology. Everything in the Vedas is mythology. Everything in the Vedas is mythology. Over and over and over again. Severe deprecation. That was a big obstacle. Big obstacle. Now, certainly some work had been done by other acharyas, starting with Shankaracharya, establishing the authority of the Vedas, and then the Vaishnava acharyas establishing the authority of the Vedas, teaching Vishnu Tattva. But it wasn't during the British time. They just threw mud at it, really big time, very systematically, very effectively. So it was a big obstacle, and which also meant that the intellectuals of his time bought into it. That is, everything Indian is backwards and everything European is good. And they were reading European literature that's, this and that, without naming names, European authors. They were very learned in British schools and European literature, and poo-pooing the Vedas. So there was a big obstacle. That was one. Another big obstacle was during his time, the name of Lord Chaitanya had fallen into not good repute because there were deviated groups of people who took the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, distorted them like anything, and were teaching this is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Doing bad stuff. 13 different groups of Apasampradayas. And that was the name of Lord Chaitanya. Maybe 20 years ago, on my way to Mayapur, I stayed in Calcutta at the home of one ISKCON devotee who was a professor. Chaitanya Das was his name, disciple of Bhakti Charu Swami. And Chaitanya Das, did in a private discussion, just said, it's true. In Calcutta, even when, what to speak of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, when I was going to school, Chaitanya's name was bad. Because there were deviated people doing deviated things in the name of Lord Chaitanya. And he had amongst educated people, which means, the people in general as well, had a bad impression. So it was a big obstacle. And then a third big obstacle was that wherever there was bhakti, it was mixed. And, sometimes a little bit, sometimes big, and sometimes in between, but mixed. But so Shuddha Bhakti, because that's what's in this verse, that's what's triggering this. Great faith and pure devotional service. Shuddha Bhakti was not popular. Now, in South India, Shuddha Bhakti is popular. In North India, Shuddha Bhakti wasn't popular. Just, without going into it. So that was an obstacle. And he wanted to teach, and he was teaching. But there were those that were, quote, spiritual or religious, they had different ideas of what that is, and it wasn't Shuddha Bhakti. So he had like a tough audience. Triple tough. However, he was very powerful. He was empowered by Krishna to do what he was doing. And he spoke clearly, authoritatively on the basis of scripture. It's Haridas Thakur, who's the Acharya of the chanting of the holy name, who's going to speak these truths, but it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur who's writing them. Shuddha Bhakti, Shuddha Nam, the glories of the holy name. So Lord Chaitanya said, you know the truth of the holy name, the best of all truths. You are an ideal example of saintly conduct. You are an expert preacher. Those are three things. Truth about the name, saintly in conduct, excellent preacher. So achar, prachar, and Krishna tattva. Speak, O Haridas, the limitless glories of the holy name. So that's the topic, glories of the holy name. Hearing them from your mouth, I will feel bliss. So a starting point when Haridas speaks, who is a Vaishnav? During this chapter 2, there's two slightly differing definitions of who is a Vaishnav. That's okay, we'll make note. This is what Lord Chaitanya said when he was asked this question in Jagannath Puri by some householder devotees. Anyone who once says the holy name is a Vaishnav. It's a very broad, liberal definition. A householder should carefully honor him. Anyone from whose mouth one always hears the holy name of Lord Krishna is a more exalted Vaishnav. He is the abode of all good qualities. And the third category, so beginning, intermediate, and advanced, most advanced, simply by seeing him, one feels devotion to Lord Krishna and finds Lord Krishna's holy name in one's mouth. That's you who see the Vaishnav, you start chanting just by seeing. That is a most exalted Vaishnav. This is Prabhupada dancing at Rath Yatra in San Francisco. How will the conditioned souls take up this chanting of Lord Krishna's holy name? What is the arrangement for that? Please tell me. Please tell that to me. This is Lord Chaitanya speaking to Haridas. He is the deliverer of the holy name. He's asking Haridas to teach him. How? Because Lord Chaitanya likes to give honor to his devotees, so he's empowering Haridas to say what Haridas says. Folding his hands, Haridas began to speak. Pushed by ecstatic love, his eyes were filled with tears, and his voice was choked. So now comes Bhaktivinoda Thakur's rewriting or paraphrased expression of this Padma Purana verse for which the book is named, or from which the book was named. Nama Chintamani Krishnas. So it's his language, but he's saying that the nature of the holy name is its Chintamani. It's formed of eternal and transcendental touchstone. The holy name is not different from Lord Krishna himself. Abhinatvam nama namino. Eternally free from material imperfection. Nityamukta. We're going to see the Bengali in just a minute. That's the next slide. Always situated in pure goodness. Shuddha Sattva. The holy name, Abhina, or it's not done yet. Don't take a picture yet. It's not done yet. One more. Then you can take a picture. Abhina. Bhina and abhina. Bhina means different. Abhina means non-different. The name is identical or abhina with he who is denoted by the name, Nami. So there's two. Nama and Nami. Nama is the name. Nami is what is named. What is denoted by the name. The object or the entity or the person. The person. And then there's the name of the person. Like chair. Then there's the object that name is denoting. So Krishna is the name and the person Krishna, they're the same. The word chair and the chair are different. The name Krishna and the object named are non-different. That's the nature of spiritual reality. So the name, abhinna or identical with he who was denoted by the name Krishna, descends to this world as the complete incarnation of the highest sweetness, rasa. So I'll say the Sanskrit from Padma Purana, and then you can see the Bengali, which includes everything. There's 4 lines. Really simple. Really, really simple. Nama Chintamani Krishnas, first line. Nama, the name, is Chintamani. And the name is Krishna. Nama Chintamani Krishnas. Then comes this word, rasa. Chaitanya rasa. Vigraha. Vigraha means form. So it's full of sweetness. Chaitanya rasa vigraha. That's 2 lines of 4. The third, Purna Shuddho. Purna Shuddho. Completely pure. There, Shuddha Sattva. You can take a picture now. Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva. Pure goodness. Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto. Eternally free from material imperfection. Abhinna. There's the word abhinna again in that last line. Abhinna tvam. Tvam means having the quality of or somethingness. Hardness, softness, somethingness. Tvam means having the quality of. Abhinna tvam. Nama, namino. So there's these 2. Name and the object named, or that which is denoted by the name. Abhinna. They're not different. So here's the Bengali. You want to say the Bengali? This is his mother tongue, so I can say, but you can say better.
কৃষ্ণ নাম চিন্তামণি অনাদি চিন্ময়, যেই কৃষ্ণ সেই নাম এক তত্ত্ব হয়। চৈতন্য বিগ্রহ নাম নিত্য মুক্ত
Nityamukta Tattva.
নিত্য মুক্ত তত্ত্ব, নাম নামই ভিন্ন নয়, নিত্য শুদ্ধ সত্য।
Last line.
এই জড় জগতে তার অক্ষর আকার রসরূপে রসিকেতে সত্য অবতার।
Everything is there. So the translation was the previous slide. This is the Bengali that it's a translation of. So now his next topic. The next topic is to say, to take this, the name and the object named are the same. Nama and Nami are the same, abhinna, identical. Then he's going to say that the form of Krishna and the name of Krishna, they're not only non-different, but the pastimes and qualities of Krishna, they're also non-different. There's 4 ways to know Krishna. Here's what he writes. Any object is known by 4 characteristic features: name, form, qualities, and activities. Lord Krishna, the supreme object, is knowable in terms of his unlimited and eternal name, form, qualities, and pastimes. The absence of these 4 features in anything denies its status as an object. For example, Brahman is impersonal and formless. Hence, it is not an object unto itself, but simply a distinctive trait of the Supreme Lord. I'll say it again. He's going to cover this topic multiple times, so don't worry if you don't get it right away. It comes in the last chapter also. Nama Rupa Guna Lila. From the name, as you chant the name nicely, something becomes revealed within the name, and that's Krishna's form. Not like somewhere out there you see Krishna's form and then somewhere over here is Krishna's name. But the name has form. And as one chants nicely, the form of Krishna becomes knowable or known. And then the qualities of Krishna, then the pastimes of Krishna, and all that is packed up in the name. I'll say it again. It's not, what he's not saying is you chant nicely and the form of Krishna is going to appear over there somewhere. And then the qualities of Krishna will appear over there somewhere, and then the pastimes of Krishna will appear in yet another stage. Everything is within the name. Why? Because the name is not different than the person. So then he's saying without these four features, characteristic features of an object, it's not an object. So for example, Brahman has no features. It's formless. So therefore it's not an object, but it's a distinctive trait of the Supreme. Okay, we're going to move on. Lord Krishna exists eternally. He is nectar personified. He is free from material dualities. He has four features: name, form, qualities, and actions. They're all perfect. These four features are manifest by his Sandhini potency. What's Sandhini potency? Sandhini potency is one of Krishna's internal potencies that manifests everything. The Sandhini potency manifests Krishna's form. The Sandhini potency manifests Krishna's flute. The Sandhini potency manifests the Dham. The Sandhini potency manifests Govardhan Hill and the river Jamuna and all the peacocks and all the cowherd boys. It manifests everything. It's the existential potency of Krishna's internal potency, that existential portion. You can say the Sat portion. And it exists eternally. All four features are manifest by that potency. There's the internal potency, expanding this idea a little bit. Aside from Sandhini potency, there's Samvit, or cognizance, or possessing awareness potency. Samvit. And then the third is Ladini. Sandhini, Samvit, and Ladini. We know that's Radharani, the pleasure potency. So existence, knowledge, and pleasure. That's the internal potency. Samvit, Sandhini, Sandhini, Samvit, knowledge, Samvit, to know completely, Samvit, potency. The internal potency has that component. And Ladini, personified by Radharani, pleasure potency. So all these four are manifest by the Sandhini potency. That's what he's saying. And therefore they're always eternal. It's not like, anyway, it's not a time-bound manifestation. It's the spiritual potency manifests name, form, qualities, and pastime. They're perfect and have no material touch. Lord Krishna tracks everyone in all the worlds. The great treasure that is Lord Krishna's name also has the same quality eternally. As Krishna is all attractive, his name is all attractive. Even if someone finds chanting Krishna's name to be boring. It's not because the name is boring, it's because our mind is dull. Because the name is all attractive. We discussed this yesterday. Just like when one has a liver disease, jaundice, Ayurveda recommends misri or rock candy. And when you have a jaundice disease and you take rock candy, It tastes bitter. I have personal experience. One time I had jaundice. And so I did what was told. You take rock candy. And sure enough, that which is concentrated sweetness tastes really bitter. I wanted to spit it out. It was so bitter. Bitter. But it's not bitter. But it tasted bitter because of the jaundice condition. Similarly, the name Krishna has all these qualities of Krishna eternally. And it's the cure, the medicine for this age. Okay. Anyone who remembers Lord Krishna's name meets Lord Krishna's form, because they're non-different. Within the name is Krishna's form. Lord Krishna's name and form are not different. They are Lord Krishna himself, dancing in different dancing places. Interesting way of saying it, huh? One is over there and the other is on your tongue. Different dancing places. Maybe on your altar or in a nice painting or something. He goes on. This is Haridas. Lord Krishna possesses 64 qualities. This is Rupa Goswami's teaching. All of which are manifest in him in limitless fullness. In his various incarnations, these qualities are manifest only partially. So in the large painting in the center, that's Krishna and Balaram in the chariot headed for Mathura from Vrindavan. And all around, those are the other Leela avatar forms of the Lord. And those Leela avatar forms of the Lord, they also have qualities and opulences, but the fullness is less. They don't manifest them in the same fullness that Krishna does. All these qualities are eternally present in Lord Krishna's holy name. Limitless numbers of these qualities fill the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. Present everywhere in the waves of these qualities are Lord Krishna's pastimes. So now we're going from name to form to pastimes, or qualities and pastimes. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. In sequence. According to Haridas Thakur, who has direct experience, I don't, all those things are sequentially revealed from one thing. The one thing is the name. And sequentially, the form, the qualities, and the pastimes. Present everywhere in the waves of these qualities, name, form, qualities, are Lord Krishna's pastimes. These perfectly spiritual pastimes are manifested in 3 places: Goloka, Vaikuntha, and Braja. So he was asked, what are the glories of the holy name? That's what he's doing. That's chapter 2. The holy name is the root of everything. And he's still on these 4 things: name, form, quality, pastimes. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. Of these 4 ways, name, form, qualities, and pastimes, by which you are known, your name is the first. This is accepted by all scriptures. By your name alone, the Vaishnava Dharma is manifest. By your name, your form, qualities, and pastimes are made visible. By your name, your Krishna pastimes are known. By your name, the supreme truth about you is manifest. He gets pretty clear. He's emphasizing the name. That's where it starts. Now comes another variant definition of Vaishnava, and it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's language. He's going to use this almost Vaishnava and then a full Vaishnava. The almost, I'll say it before reading it. The almost Vaishnava is one who has what we discussed yesterday, namabas. What's namabas? What's abas? Abas means shadow or reflection. Okay, so like, when you're driving your car at night and you look in the rear view mirror and you see some headlights. There's not headlights in the rear view mirror. The headlights are behind you. But you see the reflection of the car behind you, the headlights of the car behind you. So it's tilted at an angle so you could see the car behind you, the lights of the car behind you. That's the reflection. That's abas. It's a reflection. And then there's the lights of the car. So same. There's the pure holy name, Shuddha Nam, and there's the Nam Abas. And the stage of chanting that we do usually is the Abas stage. It's the shadow of, not the pure. It's like, so that's the reflection example. Then another example is a shadow. We did that last night. There was a light. So there's a light, and here's an object, and the object casts a shadow. So as I move my hand, the shadow will move. So Namabas is just a shadow of the holy name. It's not the full holy name. It resembles, just like the shadow on the wall resembles the shape of my hand. If I turn it this way, it's going to look different. But the shape of the shadow is resting upon the object that's casting the shadow. Then there's the source of light. So Namabas is that. It's the reflection or the shadow of Namabas. So the real object is pure. And then there's what we experience. We're not experiencing the pure. We're experiencing the shadow of the pure. So he's going to discuss an almost Vaishnava, or it's Praya, Vaishnav Praya, almost Vaishnav, is one who's doing Namabas. A person who's chanting of your name is Namabas, or the faint light of the holy name, is called an almost Vaishnava or Vaishnav Praya. By Lord Krishna's mercy, he gradually becomes purified. That's actually a third example. There's night, there's day, and there's in between day and night. Dawn. When it's night, we all have experience, it's dark. And before you can see the sun, you can see the light of the sun in the sky. You can't see everything clearly, but you can see better than at night. So that in between, that sandhi, that juncture between nighttime, no sunlight, and full direct sunlight, that in between, he's saying here the first faint light of the holy name. That's Abbas. The next slide is going to say when you experience the full direct holy name. So this is Namabas. And we're going to hear a whole bunch more about the different kinds of Namabas. In stages. It's all leading to, let's go to Shuddha. See the distinction between the two. Let's strive for the pure, unobstructed holy name. A conditioned soul may chant your name with faith. When he becomes purified, he's called a Vaishnav. Faith. Directed towards, invested in the holy name, you qualify. You're a Vaishnav. You may be Vaishnav Praya. It's not pure yet. That's okay. You're a Vaishnav. Then, really interesting, he was asked, what are the glories of the holy name? Here's one of them. So we're going to hear, in this world, there's lots of matter. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, and combinations of those things that make up material bodies, make up planets, make up objects, trees and birds and backyards and trampolines and all kinds of things. It's made up of matter. But the trampoline doesn't bounce without a spirit soul. Now, a spirit soul may be in a body jumping up and down, and then the trampoline moves. But the spiritual is the soul and the name, these two things. That's the teaching. And there isn't a third thing. That's absolutely spiritual, absolutely spiritual, absolutely spiritual. You can spiritualize things. You can spiritualize things. Like, let's say, prasadam, or a deity, or scripture. But there's material elements that are perishable. But for the soul, there's nothing material that's perishable. And for the material, that's perishable. Not to spiritualize something, but absolutely spiritual. In this world, there are two things that are absolutely spiritual, and only two things. Nothing is like the holy name in this world of birth and death. The holy name is the greatest treasure in Lord Krishna's treasure house. In this world of birth and death, the individual souls and Lord Krishna's holy name alone are spiritual. All else is made of matter. Now again, matter can be spiritualized. This photograph is a ship that one devotee, a very creative person in Hawaii, saw that people in Hawaii like to go for boat cruises, so he invested some money in a sailboat, a big one. And he would take people on cruises in a sailboat around Hawaii. And guess what they would do when they were in the sailboat? You got it. They'd chant Hare Krishna. And they were having a great time. They would pay to go riding around Hawaii in a sailboat chanting Hare Krishna. Very creative. And he still does it. I mean, this was years ago. Prabhupada disciple. Big Hare Krishna banner on the side of the sail. So you can spiritualize the sail and spiritualize the boat, but one day the boat's going to be no longer a boat. But the soul is always going to be a soul, and the name is always going to be the name. There's no birth and death for those. Now comes another very interesting glory of the holy name. There's qualities to different names. There's some primary names that are specifically Krishna or names of Krishna in relation to Krishna's devotees. And when chanting those primary holy names, one awakens love of God. There are secondary names that indicate his position. Paramatma, Yogeshwara, Karta, etc. So those names are indicating his post. God, Ishvara. So it's like, Mr. President, and then he's got a name. And his wife calls him some affectionate names, probably. And his kids call him Dad. And, it's one person in an intimate relationship with family or a formal relationship with his post. Your Honor, like the judge. They don't say Judge so-and-so, it's Your Honor. It's an honorific title position. But when the judge goes home and he's with his kids and plays with his kids, they don't say Your Honor. It's Daddy or whatever else they say, so there's primary, secondary. And the primary names deliver love of God. And the secondary names, well, let's see what the secondary names do. They deliver liberation. So there are different results by calling different names. Secondary names are found in the Karmakanda and Gyanakanda parts of the Vedas. These names bring piety and liberation. Good. Any name of God, go for it. But then there's primary names. Primary names bring the great treasure a pure love for Lord Krishna. Only by chanting these primary names do the devotees attain that treasure, love of God. The liberation and love of God are not equal. We say within love of God, liberation is a subset. Within liberation, it's not love of God. It's clear? Should I say it again? One who achieved liberation has not necessarily come to the stage of love. There's respect and reverence. There may be, detachment from material contamination, but it's not yet loving service. Loving service is far more intimate. And these primary names awaken, they have potencies to awaken that mood of love for the personality of Godhead. So again, same topic, different results. But this is now proper chanting. That's Shuddha Nam and Namabhas. We talked about Namabhas, the shadow, the reflection, or the twilight in the morning hour before the sun is fully visible. So we're going to start at the bottom. If the holy name once comes out from the mouth or enters the pathway of the ears, whether its syllables are spoken purely or not, this is Namabhas. The soul, speaking or hearing them, becomes delivered. That is, Namabhas has the power to bring liberation. Nullification of karma, and becomes situated in one's spiritual position, not complete yet, that we'll see in a moment. Here's a nice illustration. I know somebody who made this nice illustration. It's illustrating a verse from the Bhagavatam that says the same thing. Pravishta karna randrena. Pravishna means to enter. Karna means ear. See that Mataji over there on the left? That sound is entering her ear. The sound of the Bhagavatam, or the sound of the name. Pravishta karna randrena means the whole. When that sound of Krishna's name, or the Srimad Bhagavatam, enters the ear, Pravishta karna randrena, svanam bhava saroruham. Saroruham is that lotus flower that you see growing, and it stimulates the lotus flower to open. That's the lotus flower of the heart. It becomes opened and cleansed by that sound of Krishna's name, or the sound of the Bhagavatam, or the sound of Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. You see around that girl's head, there's this kind of halo that's kind of blackish, ugly, of color. So those are material contaminations. They get cleansed away. Lust, anger, greed, etc. So that's the effect of even Abhas chanting, what most of us are doing. It's good. It's not the best, but it's good. It's a beginning. Here's a nice stairway up to some temple up the top of a long series of steps. However, one thing should be said about this: chanting with Namabhas will bring its benefits slowly. Namabhas is certainly auspicious, but with Namabhas chanting, the great treasure of pure spiritual love takes birth only after a delay. I use the example of cooking. Many of you here cook. Certainly the ladies cook. Probably some men cook too. And supposing you want to cook some rice. You need a few things. You need a pot, you need some water, you need some rice, little salt, and a flame. 5 things. Turn the flame up, put the pot on the stove, and let it boil. But supposing you put the pot 6 feet above the flame. It's going to take a while, right? It may still cook. Eventually it's going to cook. But it'll take a while. So similarly, namabas is not the direct heat of the flame in cooking the rice. Namabas is slow. It's beneficial. You can still cook your rice. You can still become purified. But it's going to be slow to get the actual outcome of the cooked rice, or the awakening of love of God, pure spiritual love. May take a while. Not may, it will. By namabas chanting, sins are gradually destroyed, and the pure holy name gradually appears. Then the chanter attains pure love for Krishna, or Krishna Prem. Okay, we're going to go to another related topic. There's categories of namabas. One of those categories of namabas is called vyavadhana, and that is seeing that Krishna and his name are separate. The graphics are really clear. There's the name on the right side, there's the person Krishna on the left side, and one who sees they're separate, that's not right. It's incorrect. It's called vyavadhana. So there are persons, and when I was in college, once upon a time I was in college, and the first chanting that I came in contact with was by an impersonalist. Even way back then, an impersonalist was doing the college circuit and chanting Hare Krishna. And he didn't teach anything about taking shelter of Krishna. It was become one with Krishna. I didn't understand what he was doing. But eventually I understood what he was doing. And that, the name of Krishna and Krishna are different. This vyavadhana kind of chanting. Haridas Thakur says, to think that Lord Krishna is different from his holy name is the offense of separation. As long as this idea of separation, vyavadhana, is present, there can be no pure love. But that's not, their goal is not love. Their goal is, what? Become one with. And that's a nice phrase, become one with. Sounds nice. Sounds like, yummy. But when you really get down to it, when I understood what he was saying, this fellow that was chanting Hare Krishna in the college circuit, I walked. Because what he was saying is, the phrase was kind of like nice sounding. In the beginning, there's you in the chant. And there's you in the chant, and there's you in the chant. But eventually it's just the chant. And I put 2 and 2 together and came up with 4. What he's saying is you become God. Poor God. Me? I'm walking. And I don't know where this train is going, but I don't want to go on that train. But that's the vyavadhana. The name is not the same as the person. There's no person. It's just the name. You become one with the name. Become one with the Supreme. So the sound is supreme and there's no person. It's just, you're it. You become one with. No, thank you. Now, going a little deeper, there's 2 types of this vyavadhana. There's varna. Varna, what does varna mean? Huh? Syllables. So separation of syllables. For example, one of the names of the Lord is Hari, but you can put some syllables in between. Hatikari. Take away the middle 2 and it becomes Hari. So if one says Hatikari, then it's Varna Vyavadhana. You're still getting some benefit, but it's not the same. Or Haram, there's Ram. Common in America for some period of time was Bolarama. You heard that one? You're from India, you don't know Bolarama. Bowling alleys, they were called Bolarama. Rama, something O Rama. So there's the name. People didn't know that they were chanting Rama's name. They're making a business. But somehow they came up with Bolarama. They had success, they kept the name, Bolarama. So that's a category of Vyavadana. Syllables are separate. Tattva is similar, it's not the same. Tattva is disruption of philosophical conclusions. This is more serious. Lord Krishna's name and Lord Krishna himself are not different. So if you think they're separate or philosophical disruption, that's not good. Someone who is polluted by Mayavad philosophy imagines them to be separate. That's what I encountered in college, and I did a U-turn. No, thank you. I didn't know what was going on. It just didn't make sense to me. Kind of disturbed me. He's teaching kids that you become God. Just by saying Krishna, that you become one with the mantra. That wasn't nice. This is Haridas Thakur's summary. One should understand properly that the holy name is identical to the Lord himself. The principal names of Krishna should be chanted as Shuddhanam, devoid of namabhas, and the offense or aparad of Vyavadana. When he leaves namabhas behind, we're making progress now, we're leaving namabhas behind. The chanter attains pure chanting of the holy name, then the soul carefully serves his spiritual master. When the devotee's devotional service is freed from the unwanted things or anarthas, the spiritual holy name dances on the devotee's tongue, then the devotee will never abandon the holy name, for it becomes to him like a flood of nectar. Some of you may recognize the photograph on the right side. That's Indra, who started the 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan. And he's kind of like a legend in ISKCON today. He left his body by some accident. And, he started giving very much strength to congregational chanting. 24-hour kirtan in the Vrindavan, the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan. It is still going on today. Been going on for something like 30 years now. 24 hours for 30 years in Vrindavan. Intoxicated by drinking the nectar of the holy name, the soul dances without stopping. Then the holy name dances. Then the treasure of the spiritual love dances. Together they make the whole world dance. Then Maya runs far away. Haridas has lots of realization about this. He who has faith, again, I underlined the word faith, in the holy name is qualified to chant. All potencies are present in the name. Chanting is every living entity's right. Doesn't matter birth, language, culture, anything. In the holy name, there are no obstacles. Now this is circling back to Lord Chaitanya's teaching. Shikshastika 2, embedded here. Considerations of the proper time or place, of impurity, of rules and regulations, or anything else have no bearing on chanting the holy name, for the holy name is very powerful. Shikshastika 2, Lord Chaitanya being spoken here, saying it in simple language. Niyama taksmarane nikala. Niyama, the do's and the don'ts. Yama and niyama, the do's and the don'ts. There's no niyamas. There's no rules, it's hard and fast rules. There's a nice story. Some of you may have been to Puri. Anyone here been to Puri? Okay. Next time you go to Puri, almost for sure, maybe you did it already. You'll go to the place where Lord Chaitanya stayed called Gambhira. Did you go there? Yeah, you went there. Yeah, Gambhira? Gambhira. That's a really tiny little room. It's like a closet, really small space where Lord Chaitanya stayed. And he was given that place to stay by Kashi Mishra. Kashi Mishra was a pujari, and he was the spiritual master. He was the spiritual master of the king, Prataparudra. So the king approached Kashi Mishra. Do you have a place? Do you have a big space there? Sure. He gave him the Gambhira to stay. And there's a long story, but you see Gopal Guru Goswami picture. It's not a picture. There's a murti of Gopal Guru Goswami. I could spend a half an hour describing about him. But Gopal Guru Goswami, when he was a very little boy, like 5-6 years old, he was visiting Kashi Mishra's home. No, it's how I say home. It's like this big palace kind of thing. Those of you that have been, you know it's big space. It's called the House of Kashi Mishra. That's the big sign. But it's, it's acres of land and a big building. So Gopal, he had a different name, but Lord Chaitanya nicknamed him Gopal. He was from a Brahmin family. And Gopal saw a Brahmin. This is during Lord Chaitanya's life. His practice was he would chant constantly. I mean, literally constantly. Constantly. I guess except when he ate, but he was, constantly chanting. And one time Gopal saw him running to the toilet holding his tongue. And he asked him, "Why are you holding your tongue?" He said, "Because I'm going to a contaminated place in the toilet. I don't want to have anything, I don't want to contaminate the holy name." And Gopal, little boy, scolded him. Said, "Don't you know that the holy name is pure? Nityamukto, purnashuddho. It's completely pure, can't be contaminated. It'll purify everything. So why are you holding your tongue? This is wrong understanding." And what Gopal said to the Brahmin accepted it. Lord Chaitanya heard it, and then he started calling him Gopal Guru. The little boy is now rightly so, instructing a Brahmin. And in the course of his life, he became a very, very celebrated Vaishnava. Long story of his life. Wonderful personality. So his murti, you see here, is in the temple room. And there's a long story of how that happened. It wasn't too much of a common practice, but it was an arrangement that was made. So the name is pure. That's the point. Anything's impure become pure by contact with the Supreme Pure. How do you purify? By contact with that which is supremely pure, you become pure. And the name is supremely pure. So this is the age of Kali. And anyone can chant musically or on beads or whatever. You see Gopal Guru, he's got some beads there. Chanting the holy name. He did that regularly. In contrast, there are other activities mentioned in the Vedas, such as giving charity, performing yajnas, performing ritual bath, chanting japa of other mantras. Many rules and regulations must be followed. However, in chanting Lord Krishna's holy name, faith alone makes one qualified to chant. There's not niyamas involved. You can chant in the toilet room. You can take your bead bag with you there, but you can chant. Anyone who, and again, faith, undeviating faith, takes shelter of the chanting of Lord Krishna's holy name. Chanting, that is the religion, Yuga Dharma for the sage, attains everything. The souls in Kali Yuga should make Lord Krishna their whole world and always sincerely chant Lord Krishna's holy name. This painting you see on the right, it is said that this was an artist who was commissioned to make a painting of Lord Chaitanya as he actually looked. And it's kind of a mystical painting, but at least that's what they say about this painting. Now, on the left-hand side, that's Shikshastaka 2. What's Shikshastaka? Shiksha means instructions. Ashtaka means 8. It's Lord Chaitanya's 8 instructions about chanting. And here's this niyamata, the third line, tatrapita, niyamata, smarane nakala. You can chant and remember the holy name at any time, any circumstance, no niyamas. Now with rituals, there's all kinds. The right time, the right place, the right materials, the right cleanliness. The flags have to be in a certain direction, or you mess something up and you don't get the result. It has to be really, really, really just right. Chanting of the mantras in a certain way, in a certain meter, and so forth and so on. No such rules with chanting of the holy name. We're almost done. I promise. We're on, what slide are we on? 30 of 34. Okay, here's 31 of 34. What is favorable and reject what is not favorable for chanting. It should be accept what is favorable, reject what is not favorable for chanting. The images, those are the 6 Goswamis. The 2 in the middle are Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, associates of Lord Chaitanya, and the other Goswamis of Vrindavan. One should accept everything favorable for devotional service and reject everything unfavorable for devotional service, making Krishna one's whole world. One should pass this life always remembering Lord Krishna's holy name. Again, what Bhaktivinoda is doing here, or what Haridas Thakur is doing, is paraphrasing a verse from Padma Purana. One of Padma Purana's verses speaking about Sharanagati, or surrender. And this is a summation of what that verse says. One should chant the holy name with determination. There's Lord Chaitanya, a painting of Lord Chaitanya seeing Krishna underneath a tree. And he's stunned. One should not follow other religions or other rituals. One should not worship anyone but Lord Krishna as the Supreme Lord. One should always chant Krishna's name and always serve as devotees. In this way, one will certainly attain pure love for Lord Krishna, or Krishna Prem. And 2 slides left. Weeping Haridas, that's Haridas Thakur. We saw this very same image at the beginning of yesterday's class. There's a Murti of Haridas in Puri. So those of you that have been to Puri, did you go to Siddha Bakul? Do you remember? Siddha Bakul. I've in Puri, it's a place where Haridas Thakur stayed. I had this experience. We were asking people, where is the residence of Haridas Thakur? They would shrug their shoulders. Then if you ask them, where is Siddha Bakul? Oh, Siddha Bakul.
Actually, we took a tour, and the driver took us all in
So many places. Yeah, okay. So it's a celebrated place in Puri. Next time you go, spend a little time there, and you'll see this is the Murti of Haridas Thakur. He's the one that's speaking this whole book. And behind him you see an old tree, branches of an old tree. And the story behind that old tree is Haridas was very humble. He was unwilling to enter the temple because born in a low-class family, etc., etc. And he didn't even stay in a cottage. He just was out underneath the sun. And in Puri, it sometimes gets really hot in the summer. Really hot. So Lord Chaitanya one time when visiting him, saw him sitting in the hot sun chanting. So he took one of the paraphernalia items that received from the pujaris at the temple. I don't know if you know this, but every morning they offer him a toothbrush. You doing that? So it's a little bakul branch, and at the end it's kind of soft and kind of fluffed out. So Lord Chaitanya had one, a toothbrush from a bakul branch. He stuck it in the ground, and voila, a whole bakul tree with leaves and shade for Haridas. So he could sit under the bakul tree with big leaves. So after that, it was called Siddha Bakul. And it died. They took some graft branches. They made another one. Siddha Bakul. That's what's behind him. Weeping Haridas fell before Lord Chaitanya's feet, grasped them and begged for the gift of love for the holy name. Love for the holy name. And this is our last slide. There's a photograph of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who wrote, "The Chintamani jewel of Lord Krishna's holy name has become the life of Bhaktivinoda, who always stays at Haridas Thakur's feet." The end. Chapter 2. So, go back to... Okay. This is chapter 2, and considerations, vichar, in nama grahana, the chanting of the holy name. So this isn't everything, but it's Haridas Thakur's considerations of the chanting of the holy name. Do this. So let's see if there's some discussion. I'm hoping our hosts and our friends of our hosts will have something to add to this discussion.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So this is about Varna Vyavadhana. So in that it is mentioned even the words like haram or hatikari, they still have Hari or Rama, and they get still the benefit because it's even if it is Namabhas.
Yes.
So the question I had was, I understood it's about the consciousness and not just the name, because if
To get the full effect, it's consciousness, but even without consciousness. If one chants in the backyard, the trees are going to benefit.
that's right.
They're not going, yay, they're chanting, great. But they're hearing and they're benefiting.
But in Muslim culture, haram means something
Bad.
Bad. Yes, that's what I was wondering. How, though it is consciousness is that it is bad, still they are getting benefit. Is what.
Right. You've
Amazing.
understood correctly.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Now, let's, before we go to Radha, I want to give our other people a chance to say something. Radha has always got 10 questions, so... Okay, let's go back there. And she won't forget also, so...
Very bad knee. So I do puja every day, just like my sister, and Narayan's name and mantra and everything, and Hare Krishna and Radha Krishna, everything.
Sure.
What I have found is, and I've studied a lot of books.
Good.
Bhagavad Gita I read from page to page, Ramayana from page to page.
Good.
And everything. But I only take into my mind what is like the very basic that I can do or I can say.
Okay.
And what I've learned from my elders and also my sister and everybody, that like when Rama, when somebody says Rama, that is also very I mean, whether you, it says in the Gita, and also not in the Gita, in Ramayana,
Yeah.
that Ram se bada hai Ram ka naam. Ramer theke, even from Ram ka naam is much more bigger. And
Yes.
and when somebody dies, we always, especially Bengali, we always say Ram's name in the ear.
Fine.
You know,
Fantastic.
because that will give you moksha.
Yes.
You know, so Ram is the same person as Krishna.
Yes.
So whether you chant Ram or Narayan or Krishna or Vishnu, I believe they're all one and the same. And some people find that saying Krishna's name, it's a fulfillment for them. I call on all names because I believe he's listening somewhere, you know,
Fine.
and in some form or other. And wherever he is, wherever he's everywhere, and listening to that, believing in that, I call on all the names, you know.
Fine.
And
Yeah, that's your faith, and that's fine.
yeah,
That's the requisite. The prerequisite is faith, and you've got it.
and it has helped me a lot of times, because I have like so much faith I put in it that a lot of times something bad happens, I challenge them like, hey, I did all this not because of this happening to my family, but if it happens, but it's gonna hurt me, and if that helps you, makes you happy, then let it be. And then I've found
You're
that
very tolerant.
it turns it around. It turns around. And it has happened many times in my life. You know, but
You're very fortunate.
it has happened a lot of times in my
So
life.
you're saying two things. Ram's name or any of the names of Vishnu Tattva forms are, in your estimation, the place of shelter in which you find shelter. And the other is, tolerance in the face of reversals of life. And you'll find that has power. It reverses the reversal, the misfortune. Fantastic. So you're making sharing your faith and your practices. And would you like me to respond, or what is it?
I would like to know, like the
Why is this emphasis on Krishna's name? Is that
Yes.
That's the thing?
yes.
Are you how familiar are you with Srimad Bhagavatam? Little Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Purana?
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar.
Kind of familiar.
I might not remember. I'm old, so I might not remember everything. But
Okay, it's a celebrated text amongst the Vaishnava texts, like Ramayana, like Bhagavad Gita, certainly celebrated Vaishnava texts. So also Bhagavatam is considered superlative amongst those Vaishnava texts. And according to Srimad Bhagavatam, these various incarnations of Krishna are severally described, sometimes, succinctly, sometimes several chapters, and they're glorified equally. And, not but within that same text, there's a very clear definition or statement that of all these incarnations, one of them is the source of all of them. And that one, this is the Bhagavatam now, Bhagavad Purana, that source of all the avatars and all the everything, the material spiritual creation, that source is Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, the original form of Krishna. And within that original form of Krishna, I could elaborate extensively, but keeping it simple, all the potencies and all the qualities of the Supreme source of everything are within him in the superlative degree. Anyway, without elaborating. Therefore, there's emphasis on Krishna Nam. However, back to the other side, any of the names of the Supreme Lord have the potencies to bring one to the spiritual world. So your faith is honored by all Vaishnavas. And at the same time, now going to the other side again, there's something very special about Krishna's pastimes, his childhood pastimes, and all of the Braja pastimes. There's a madhurya or sweetness within them that's not found elsewhere. It's not found in Vaikuntha. And there's a sweetness within Krishna's pastimes that it's not found even in Ram's pastimes or Nrsimha's pastimes. And there are superlative forms of the Lord as well. Now there's details and details and details, which this is not suited for this discussion, but there's special emphasis because now within the Mahamantra there's 50-50 with Ram. Nonetheless, there's special appreciation for Krishna and Krishna Tattva being the source even of Balaram and the source of Ram and Parshuram and all other Rams. Because he's the source. So there's a sweetness with his pastimes that's very unique and very much loved. Now that's bhakti. And some within ISKCON, some of my dearest friends are Ram Bhaktas. Some of my dearest friends are Nrsimha Bhaktas. And it's not like something's wrong with them, but they didn't get it or something like that. They see those forms of the Lord in whom they have enormous faith and love, and they continue reading Ramayana and exploring it and discussing it and teaching it and so forth to their heart's content. It is not like something's missing for them, because they also understand Krishna's position and they have special affection for Ram. Fantastic. 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 And Sri Vaishnavas have special affection for Narayan. Fantastic. And they have, here's a nice story. Want to hear a nice story? Sure. Lord Chaitanya, you've been hearing about Lord Chaitanya. When he was young, he took sannyas. He stayed in Puri. After some time staying in Puri, he wanted to go find his brother who had before him taken sannyas. So he went to South India. He spent 2 years traveling in South India. When he got to Sri Rangam, it was the rainy season. So the chief priest, Venkatabhatta was his name at that time, invited him, please stay at my home. So he stayed at his home. And every night, worshipper of Lord Narayan and a worshipper of Krishna were having discussions on spiritual topics, naturally so. One was a sannyasi, the other was a grihastha, but very elevated in consciousness, lovers of God. So one evening, Lord Chaitanya asked him a question. Why is it the goddess of fortune is most chaste, and yet she left the lotus feet of Lord Narayan to go enter the rasa dance of Krishna? And he said, no problem, because Narayan and Krishna are the same. There's no lack of chastity on the part of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. Lord Chaitanya replied, yes, that's correct. However, she underwent austerities according to scripture for 100 celestial years, and she was still not able to enter the rasa dance. If they're not different, why was she doing austerities, and two, she couldn't enter? According to scripture. And Venkatabhatta said, I don't know, but I think you know. Can you answer your own question? He said, yes. And the answer is, Goddess of Fortune has a majestic mood, Aishvarya Bhav, the Bhav of Aishvarya, opulence. So she's thinking of herself as she is, the Goddess of Fortune. Lakshmi. And that's not the mood in Vrindavan. The mood in Vrindavan is Madhurya. And those that have that Aishvarya mood, they can't enter into the intimacy. It's like, it's a simple example. We were discussing this yesterday. A judge in a courtroom, it's a law in America. You're sitting down, when the judge comes in, everyone rise. And if you don't, you're in jail. It's a law. You offer respect to the judge. And it's, the attorneys address the judge as Your Honor, not by name, but the title. Like this is the secondary, the title, the position. But when he goes home, it's not, his kids don't call him Your Honor. His daddy, and his wife calls him honey or whatever she calls him. And his friends call him, Bob or, Mr. So-and-so or something like that. So there's relationships that are more intimate than the formality. In Vaikuntha, that's the formality of Aishvarya. Everyone is reverential before Lord Narayan. And then in Ram's Leela, there's more intimacy. There's no father of Narayan, but there's a father of Ram. And he has brothers, etc. So there's intimacy in Ram's relation, and there's further intimacy in Krishna's relationship that even the goddess of fortune cannot enter. No, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with her. It's just the mood is not that intimate mood. There's something that's, the opulence is there, that Krishna shows lifting Govardhan Hill and everything else he does. He has all the opulences, but there's an intimacy that's unequaled anywhere. And therefore, those who are Krishna bhaktas appreciate Krishna Nam, Krishna Leela, Krishna Tattva. But it's not disrespecting Narayan, because the Lord Chaitanya stayed at his home. He wasn't disrespecting him. He's just discussing an esoteric point of rasa, or moods of love. And Madhurya, kind of love, of intimacy of love. Not only in rasa dance, but Mother Jasoda, who breastfeeds Narayan. No such thing. But Mother Jasoda does that. And, ties him with a rope. Nobody in Vaikuntha binds Narayan with a rope, but with her love. So that's the uniqueness of Krishna Tattva, of Krishna Bhakti. So there's why there's some emphasis. There's other things to say, but it's appreciating the sweetness and the fact that it's not. If you ask a Ramanadi, who's the supreme? What will they say? Ram supreme. If you ask in Sri Rangam who's supreme, Narayana is supreme. And you ask the Bhagavatam, Krishna is supreme. So there's respect because it's same supreme, same. And there's a difference even they're the same. And the difference is the sweetness, and according to the Bhagavatam at least, accepting that as the final authority, pramana, for understanding Bhagavan, Bhagavat Purana. Anyway, according to Bhagavat Purana, Krishna is the source of all the avatars, including Vishnu, the forms of Vishnu, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, all the etc., etc.
I have another.
All right. You're upstaging Radha. She's envious.
This is
She's happy. Actually.
very. I don't know if I want an answer, or I'm still searching
Good.
myself for an answer. Last year, when COVID started, I'm from London. My parents lived in London. My father passed away a long time ago. My mother, all of a sudden, I was talking with her in Zoom, and she fainted. And then my brother lives very close by, and then I called him and he took her to the hospital. And in the hospital, she got COVID. This was the beginning in London.
Oh, wow.
The doctor said that it's very mild, and my mom didn't want to stay in the hospital. She called me on her phone and said, "Tell your brother to take me home." And she said, "I don't want to stay in the hospital." So I told my brother, just bring her home. If the doctor said that it's mild, then at that time, even here, none of us knew how bad it is. So brought her home, and she seemed to get better. And then about 3 weeks later, all of a sudden at night, she had breathing problems. My brother had oxygen, and he knew CPR. He tried doing everything. He called the ambulance, and by the time ambulance came, she was gone. And
So
at
you
that
blame
time,
yourself.
everything was shut down. I couldn't even go. I still haven't been able to go. And I bought tickets because today is the day. I wasn't going to come, but PLE insisted. Today is the day that my brothers at last in London got freedom to get together, family who have been vaccinated. So they got together in Hastings, where one of my brother lives. And at 9 o'clock this morning, they poured her ashes after a prayer. My brothers, when they were little, we were very little when we came to London, and they hardly know anything. So everything was like I was guiding them. And I told them, look, don't have to do much. Just, put a little bit flour and a incense stick, and then spray a little bit Ganga Jal, and then just pour her ashes into the ocean. And I was planning to go with my husband. I bought the tickets, and then London said, no, we're closed again. If you come, you have to quarantine for 15 days. I was going for 10 days. And I said, if I quarantine, then I'm not even going to be there, So I canceled the ticket. And today was the day that happened. Past year, I didn't do any puja. I stopped doing puja the day I heard my mom died. That I couldn't even see her, I couldn't even be with her. And I stopped doing puja. I lost all faith. I was so angry, so mad. I was in a dark, dark place. And then about a month ago, one of my brother had a heart attack, and he ended up in the hospital. And I said, well, how much more are you going to give me? And so I said, okay, you want puja from me? I'll do the puja. You better bring my brother home. And then I did all the rituals. I took a shower the way I do. I did upavas and flower, sweet, everything. And I did a ritual puja of Narayan, of Mahadev, of everybody, the way I do. After that, I started doing puja. But today was like such a bad day for me that I told PLE that, PLE, I don't think I can go. And she said, no, when you hear the talk about Krishna, you'll feel better, because she knew that I like those kind of things. So even now my faith is like very shaky. And I was one of the most, my husband used to say, my God, you've become so, ritualistic, so spiritual, and I never was. It just started all of a sudden. I never was. I got to know Krishna, I got to know Narayan, and it just started. And now my faith is so shaky. Even now, sometimes I question myself, why am I doing it? It's going to happen. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Whatever way it is, it is. So why am I praying? For what purpose?
The details are emotional and highly personal. At the same time, the principle that you're pondering is a classic. And just stepping out of the personal and the emotional. The principle is faith, and there's stages of faith. And the beginning, faith is soft and pliable. There's a Sanskrit term for it. And something that helps make the faith become more firm and eventually firm is what we were discussing yesterday. It is in this presentation for this evening. So in the Sanskrit is sambandha gyan. Understanding, I say what's what. Understanding the relationship of all things with the source of all things. When there's firm sambandha gyan, faith becomes stable. When there isn't sufficient sambandha gyan, faith is soft and pliable. It's not good times I'm feeling faithful and bad times they're not feeling faithful. It's just different circumstances depending upon, what's going on. Faith may become harmed by circumstance. But then in circumstance created, not in circumstance harmed, rather than what's what. The absolute truth, is that which is the source of everything and the relationship of all things with that source. And just like we were discussing, that which is eternal, the eternal soul. So if you, or me, or any one of us, can fix our mind on that which is eternal, the configuration of the temporary can be whatever the configuration is. It's like the weather in Boston lately. Because of this hurricane or whatever it is, the sewers are flooding. But the other, 4 or 5 days ago, it was blistering hot. And, it's just the external, the features of duality change, and there's something unchanging within. And as you or me or any one of us become more fixed on the eternal unchanging reality, then we have ballast. And then we can deal with the changing with ballast, with stability, emotional, social, intellectual, and spiritual stability. Because the temporary is temporary and sometimes. Like you said, it's going to be what it's going to be. Now, it's all going to change. Definitely, I'm going to be gone and you're going to be gone and, the building's going to be gone and the city of Boston is going to be somewhere else too. Who knows what it was and who knows what it's going to be. It's all temporary. Now, it's temporary. Now, what's really important? That which is eternal is important, and the trajectory of the soul towards the supreme eternal, that's what's important. And having proper sambandha gyan fixes that trajectory. Say it negatively. When sambandha gyan is not firm, then it's soft and pliable. I have faith, you have faith, but it gets moved around by circumstance. How to get to the place where it's not moved around because circumstances are going to change. So what is the soul's relationship with the source of everything? What's your and my and each of our relationship with, and your fathers and your mothers and your brothers and everybody that's dear to you? What's the eternal picture here? And how to get connected and stay connected. That's the Harinama Chintamani topic, this book. That's how it starts. And at the beginning of each chapter, it hits a refresh in different perspectives on that topic. And there's a nice amount of, not everything, but a nice amount of sambandha gyan, this relationship, sambandha. Relationship with the source. What does it look like? From scripture, authoritative sources, it says, this is what it is. And then within that framework, how do I make my eternal connection with the source? And for this age, the chanting of a holy name. So I would recommend in conclusion. You'll do what you feel is going to move your heart, I'm sure. But my recommendation would be to become familiar, in addition to Bhagavatam and Ramayana and the other things that you like reading, become familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam. There are groups of devotees that regularly read a little bit each day or each week or something, different models, and become familiar with the Bhagavatam. And that's the ballast that can keep the ship, even when it's stormy, you're okay. Because you're connected with the source of everything and you feel it.
I want to get back to that live before.
But that Sambandha again will get you there. Because it's inside and now it's disturbed by circumstance. Faith is soft and pliable and it's not doing so well. So the rituals is not the essence. It's the relationship that's the essence. The rituals are expressions of the essence. That, we don't trash the rituals, but the essence is the essence. And to maintain the essence, the relationship, the understand, Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of that relationship. We're going to talk about it this evening too. It's the very, each of those stages. That's this evening's topic, chapter 3. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Got it off your heart. Someone else here. We're going to go to Radha because you got something. Both of you. You go ahead. You in the green shirt. You got the microphone. I don't know your name. I'm sorry.
Yeah. My name is Giridharan Maharaj. Giridharan?
Giridharan.
Yeah.
Giridharan.
Yeah. So, in your presentation today, you mentioned about spiritualizing things. So, I'd like to know what's the effect of spiritualizing things. Like, I know spiritualizing yourself mean you're getting yourself closer to Krishna. So, does that also mean that we can do anything that is also against the 4 regulative principles? Like, can we spiritualize marijuana or meat?
No.
So how do we understand that? Like, because we also say
there's vidhis, there's rules. We don't transgress rules. You don't spiritualize sinful activity. Go ahead. Does that take care of your question?
Because often when we
I want to know why you're asking this question.
Because when I try to talk to others, like some of my friends, they say okay, you say the name is so pure, so why don't I just chant and drink?
Okay. Because that's sinning on the strength of chanting. We don't do that. But supposing someone has a drinking habit, or even worse, an addiction. Supposing they're an alcoholic. Is that alcoholic forbidden from chanting? No. Is it okay? It's not okay, but they've got a habit or an addiction, and so they do it because they have got habit or addiction. But the chanting will help to purify them, but they shouldn't. It would be an offense to think, well, hey, this is a good program. I do my drinking, and I chant and I get cleansed from the sin of drinking or the misdeed of drinking. That's one of the 10 offenses against the chanting of the holy name. So what should be recommended for your friend? In course of time, here's some reasons why that habit isn't wholesome. It's not good for you, and you know it. But you've got a habit, and it's not good for you. Over here's something that's going to help you. It's going to help purify your consciousness and heart and everything. So take chanting. And hopefully, in course of time, that habit tendency can subside because your heart has become cleansed. But if the person is thinking the other way, no problem. I'll do this chanting, and whatever is bad about this drinking or whatever it is, the other thing that's the habit for that person, meat eating or something, It's just okay because I chant. So I'm like making myself clean. That's an offense against chanting. Did that answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj. A follow-up or probably a slightly different question is you mentioned in your slide that the prerequisite for chanting the holy name is faith.
Yes, prerequisite, yeah.
Does that
if
mean
there's
that
what if there's a faithless person? What if they chant? Is that what's going to be a good thing for them? It's going to be the cooking the rice with a 6 foot in the air pot, really slow.
so when we try to request somebody who's faithless or like not necessarily faithless who are not knowing about the Maha Mantra, what should we suggest? Like, what should we tell them before?
Depends on the person. I mean, think of Valmiki before he was Valmiki. He was a hunter. He didn't have faith. He had regard for Narada. He was a bad guy. But in association with Narada, he had respect. He didn't go shoot arrows at Narada. He had respect for Narada. He went back to, the whole thing. To his family, they'll accept some sins for his... No, really, I've got to get karma. They're suffering, I get karma. What should I do? Chant Ram's name. I can't do it. Wouldn't come out. So anyway, he didn't have faith other than in Narada. So, depends. What we say to persons that don't have faith depends on the person. Depends on you. Depends on the circumstance. What you say. You may say, take some Mahaprasadam. That's maybe where you start. You smile. Depends on the person, what you say to that person. I know some people that became inclined to chant just from taking prasadam. Nothing else. It's not like that's all we do, but it has a purifying effect. Because everybody eats something, but everybody eating something doesn't make them inclined to bhakti. But taking the remnants of that which is offered to Krishna has a purifying effect. Let's go over here.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the class. Maharaj, the fourth line of the verse from where the book's name is derived from the Padma Puran. So, Harinama Chintamani Krishna.
Yeah.
So, that abhinatva that you mentioned, abhinna tvam. So that abhinna word you mentioned, that the name and the form is same, and then other places we also hear the name and the object of the name is same. So it's kind of on the similar lines.
Yes.
So we also hear that it's very hard for us to understand it because there is no material comparison, because when you say something it's not the same. But apart from accepting the scripture's word on this, how can we
Get the realization?
Get some close to the realization at least?
I've got an answer for that one. And it comes from Bhakti Siddhanta. You know who is Bhakti Siddhanta? Prabhupada's spiritual master. He writes, the mind is not capable of discerning. The intelligence is not capable of understanding that the name and the person or the object named or that which is denoted by the name are non-different. It's not going to happen with these material faculties of mind and intelligence. So how can it be understood? He says, or he writes, when the ear hears the name, he calls it with the spiritual ear, not with the material ear, because the material ear, like, material ear, music, that is also, you can hear some musical sounds, and It has some pleasing or not pleasing effect depending upon the mode of nature that you're in and the person who's singing the music, whether it's pleasing or not pleasing. So the spiritual ear is not the materially covered modes of nature influenced one, but the spiritual ear, when we hear with that kind of attention, there's a nice Sanskrit term for, with full absorption, then you realize it at the soul level. The name and the person are non-different. So say conversely, you won't get that realization until there's absorbed hearing. Say it positively. You can be guided by Scripture with faith in the Scripture. The Scripture says, so I accept it, but I don't have the realization of it yet. That's okay. I'm chanting because I have faith in the Scripture, and the Scripture says non-different, and so I'm chanting with that faith, although I don't have realization of it. How to get the realization, which is your question. Bhaktisiddhanta's answer is hearing with the spiritual ear. What does that mean? Well, you can say what it's not. It's not hearing as you hear a regular sound, like somewhere back there I hear a fan turning. I don't see it, but I can hear it, so I know there's a fan turning. Hear it? So that's the material ear. And the spiritual ear, when hearing Krishna's name, is not just that you could get an instrument that shows what the sound of Krishna's name looks like when you show it on one of those meters that shows what sounds look like on a meter. And then that's mechanical. Then there's the spiritual ear that's of the soul. When you're eager to connect with, we'll just say, the source of everything, the Supreme Person who is the source of everything, when you have that eagerness and you hear very, very, very carefully over a period of time, then that's the spiritual ear. And then there can be realization. The name and the person are non-different, or the name and the denoted by the name are non-different. That's how the realization comes. That's Bhaktisiddhanta. Now, I don't have that experience. Ask me that question. Nope, I don't have that experience. But I have faith. I see your hand. I saw it before. You're enthusiastic. We'll get you. He's done. You're next. You got to come forward a little bit. The cord is not long enough. There we go.
So, to practice anything, we need tolerance, right? We say that tolerance. So we say that, have patience.
Patience and tolerance. Okay.
Right? In anything and everything we do in life, because whether it's doing puja or doing your homework or doing anything in your life, but how much should you be tolerant, right? So
everybody has their threshold.
So everybody has his or her own threshold. So I know I'm a patient person, okay? So but then sometimes I just question myself that how much tolerance should I need? Does it come through experience, like over the years?
It fluctuates. It fluctuates day to day, hour to hour, and certainly over long periods of time, over a lifetime.
Sometimes you learn it through hard way.
Sure. And sometimes you learn it the soft way.
Majority of the time you learn it through hard way, right? So
everything depends upon relationship. I'm interrupting, but everything spiritually, everything depends upon relationship. It's just like this other discussion. Mm-hmm. Everything depends upon relationship with the source of everything. And as much as that is secure, your tolerance goes way up. And as much as that becomes weakened, your tolerance becomes very soft and pliable.
So, are you suggesting that there is really no threshold to it, like your tolerance as much as possible, you should have like a higher tolerance? Because we know in life, one day is good, one day is bad.
Why are you asking this question? Are you finding you're becoming less tolerant these days or something like that?
No. Sometimes I question myself, like, dealing with my kids and everybody.
But you don't need
that,
need an absolute barometer for how much. You keep asking how much, and why are you asking the question? You within. So I would a short, really short barometer is as much as your bhakti, your desire, your connection of loving service to Krishna, to the Supreme Person, to the Supreme can be established, that much. And beyond that is too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's you reached your threshold.
Mm-hmm.
You lose it, and you become whatever, a monster. You become angry or lash out or
Mm-hmm.
scream
Mm-hmm.
or something. That's you reach your threshold.
Mm-hmm.
But each of us has capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and it changes for each of us even in the course of a day. So long term, we want to become connected with Krishna, so that our threshold is whatever Krishna wants it to be. And we're just in our relationship with Krishna. That's everything, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So go for that. Don't worry about the threshold question. Worry about your connection with Krishna question.
The reason the thought came to my mind because of all the discussions going around, so it just suddenly came to my mind that how much tolerant should we be? So maybe after a certain point you have to protest that, okay, now you don't do this, or don't do that. So I don't know, it's a spiritual question or a philosophical question, so I just needed some guidance that how long, after I start yelling or something, how long should I hold on to that?
And the guidance I'm giving you is put that question hit the pause button on that question and change the channel to the question of how can I strengthen my relationship with Krishna? Because as much as that relationship with Krishna is strengthened, he's going to take care of the threshold question. Say it differently. Same thing, differently. Krishna will not put you through a test that you cannot endure. Krishna knows your threshold.
That's it.
And he may put you through an extreme. There's a very nice, with Bali Maharaj, after he surrendered everything, and then Vamana bound him up, and his sister freaked out. What are you doing? You know that one. So Prabhupada writes, sometimes Krishna puts one in difficulty, but he never puts one in difficulty beyond one's capacity to bear it, because he'll give you the capacity to bear it. He wanted to show how exalted was Bali, and so he did it that way. Bali didn't get faithless or shaken or, hey, this isn't fair. I surrendered everything and he's binding me up. He showed his greatness, and Krishna gave him that greatness to bear the difficulty. If there's say it again, if there's some difficulty that tests your threshold capacity for tolerance, keep your relationship with Krishna strong. He'll give you the strength to endure that short-term, whatever it is, thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the soul is eternal, and whatever that thing is not eternal. He'll give you everything you need to endure the situation, provided the relationship is right. So go to the relationship, and everything is the question is answered.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to Radha.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have two questions. My first one is based on the question that she asked on chanting names of Lord Rama and other.
Yes.
And so you told us that Krishna has all the qualities, right? All
Yes,
the
I
good
did.
qualities.
Scripture tells us that, so I
Yeah.
said it, yeah.
Yeah. But in Ramayana, in the beginning, when Sage Valmiki asked Narada, which person has all the good qualities, Narada recommended Lord Rama.
Yes, he did.
So that means Rama also has all the good qualities, right?
Yes, he does.
Because I think you
Because
also...
they're the same. Ask her. She knows. Ram and Krishna are the same. Right? Ram and Krishna are the same.
But you said that...
She knows.
Yes. But you said that all the other avatars have partial qualities.
No, they're not there. They're not manifesting. No, keyword. They're not manifesting all those qualities in the same degree that Krishna is manifesting those all good qualities. And as a detail, this is a 201 bhakti topic, not 101. That is, there are 4 qualities that Krishna has, or for characteristics that Krishna has that Ram doesn't. Ram doesn't play flute. You know what those 4 qualities are. But Ram has all good qualities, for sure. Next question.
So this question just popped up when you were talking about the hurricane that came to Boston. But hurricane, I noticed that Hari, the name Lord Hari, is in the name hurricane. And my dad would make a joke that a hurricane is a cane in the hands of Lord Hari. So what does hurricane really mean?
I'm not an entomologist. I don't know. There's somebody that's an entomologist could look it up and tell us. Go ahead.
That's my last question.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else here in the assembly? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you have something. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you.
In one of the slides, you showed that 8 instructions from Lord Chaitanya, and I think you mentioned that there are no rules for chanting.
Yes.
But then why do we have offenses for chanting?
Ah. That sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it?
Yes.
You're a college student. No, you're just a careful listener. Yeah. My understanding of the answer to your question is there's some rules regarding paraphernalia and cleanliness and time and circumstance, etc., that are what fall in the category of niyamas. On the other hand, there are considerations that fall in the category of consciousness, or the regard, or you could say faith, towards what you're doing. And if the regard or faith towards what you're doing is faithless or contrary to faith, that's the prohibition. That's the offense. Good question. Anything else back there? We're ready to move on. Do you have something? You just want to discuss the book? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.